Hello everybody. Today's video is going to be built on the last video that I made, which was how to tell people that you're dropping out of college. I had successful conversations with both of my parents about me dropping out, and I wanted to share how I did that in 3 simple steps. So without further ado, 3 steps on how you can tell your parents that you're dropping out of college. Step 1 is to make sure that you tell them as far in advance as possible. If right now you're watching this video and you're beginning to think, hey, maybe this is a possibility, go tell them. Just give them a heads up. Say, hey, I don't know how I feel about this major. I don't know if I'm really using my time well with these classes. I don't know about this whole college thing. Give them a heads up. There is no harm in voicing that maybe something's off. You're not telling them, hey, I'm thinking about dropping out. Hey, I want to drop out. Don't say that. Just voice the concerns that you're having right off the bat and say them nicely. In my case, I was actually talking to my parents about the problems I had with college like a year ahead of when I decided to drop out. They knew about why I switched degrees so many times. They knew how I felt about my classes. They knew how I felt about certain groups of people I had to spend my time with. And so when I had gone through all of these talks with them for a whole year before I decided to drop out, it actually made sense to them that I was dropping out and they weren't nearly as shocked. So if you give them a heads up on it, they're much more likely to understand and go, oh, that makes sense. They actually talked about this a while ago. Step 2 is to make sure that you are both comfortable and trusting and in a good place when you have this conversation. It is really important that you don't force this conversation by starting right off the bat, hey, I want to drop out, or ending right before you got to go, hey, I got to drop out, or coming home just to tell them, hey, I got to drop out. What would probably be best is you're already coming home for a few days. During one of the days, you happen to be hanging out. You've been kind of gauging how they're doing. You're gauging the conversation. You're seeing if you both feel good, if the conversation's flowing. And if you catch an empty spot, but you feel like you're not cutting them off, then you bring it up. Because otherwise, if you start it right off by saying it, or end it by saying it, or only come home because you have to say it, then they're a lot less likely to feel trusting and supportive when you bring it up. And step 3 is to make sure that when you tell them, you're serious. And you let them know that this is not an if, it's a when. Because if you're not sure of it and you speak like that, you say something like, well, I'm probably going to drop out soon, or I'm thinking pretty seriously about dropping out, people are going to question you. And they're not going to be asking questions out of curiosity. They're going to be asking questions because they want to change your mind. Instead, say, Mom, Dad, whoever else you're talking to, I've made my decision. I'm dropping out of college, and it's not really an if anymore. It's a when. And I don't really want questions or arguing right now. I just really need your love and support. That's really hard to criticize. And frankly, the only choice they have at that point is either to be supportive or to reject you. And another point on this, just a quick side point on this. If you are starting to feel confused about this step or a little bit anxious about this step, if you're going, but I don't know if I want to say that I'm sure that I've already made the decision, you need to go back to step 1. If you are not completely serious about dropping out, don't bring this up with people. It's gonna freak them out. Go back to step 1 and start having those conversations now. So as a quick recap, here are the 3 steps. The first is to make sure that you voice your doubts well in advance. Step 2 is to make sure that when you talk to your parents, you're in a good place. And step 3 is to make sure that you tell them this is not an if, it's a when. So hopefully they work for you. I want them to work for you. I do not want you to jeopardize your parents. Anyways, thank you for watching. As always, if you have something to say about this, just put it below. I know that it would be so easy to just go to the next video and be like, oh, whatever. But if you have something to say about this, really, put it below. We need to talk about this. This is important, okay? And I'll see you in the next video.